Welcome to K6 Wellness Revolution, where we believe health is worth fighting for. This podcast focuses on all things related to natural health, wellness, and vibrant living. We know your time is valuable, and I'm honored that you're spending some of it here. So get ready, because the Wellness Revolution starts right now. Welcome to the K6 Wellness Revolution podcast. I'm Sharon, owner of K6 Wellness Center in Dallas, Texas, where we blend trusted expertise, compassionate care, and a passion for helping you achieve optimal health, because wellness isn't just a goal, it's a revolution. And today we're exposing a major health threat, hiding in plain sight, if you will, and it's toxic chemicals that are in our food system. So with the recent ban on red dye number 3, yay, more people are questioning why harmful additives are still in our food. I mean, this is America, by golly. Why are we putting poison in our food? But especially if you consider that other countries have banned them, and some of these things have been banned for years. So what's really in our food, and how do these chemicals impact our health? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to break it down from really the biggest culprits in processed foods to how you can protect yourself and your family from exposure to these chemicals. And plus, we want to kind of touch just briefly on what policy changes we hope to see come with RFK now in HHS. So I'm not going to tackle this topic alone. I have my compadre Elena here with me as always to help break it all down. Hi, Elena.
Hello. You know, the U.S. food system is often criticized, and it really should be, because it relies so much on chemicals and additives. So let's talk about what is considered an additive. Just so people know, you can look this up in the dictionary or online, but it is any various chemical substance that's added to our food that produces a specific desirable effect. And this is not the same thing as salt and herbs and spices, but actual chemicals. And while there are thousands of chemicals currently in our foods, I'd love to talk about some of the more concerning ones and how they impact our health. I think this is very important to both Sharon and myself, right? Because so many people are coming in the door eating foods that are actually killing them or making them very sick. And the first food additive that comes to mind is MSG. Sharon, tell us about MSG.
Oh man, it's like the OG and chemicals, right?
Right.
Flavor enhancer. It's a flavor enhancer. It's also called China salt. And there's even a health condition that I don't know if it's a singular condition, but it's called like Chinese salt syndrome or something like that. But it's a flavor enhancer, and it was developed a long time ago in the early 1900s. And the whole idea was to give more of this umami type experience, or umami is like, we have sweet, we have salt, we have sour, we have bitter, and then there's umami, which is considered the other flavor, if you will, and it's kind of salty and savory. But in order to try to, convince people to eat more nutritious foods, MSG would be added to these foods. And unfortunately, it is associated with many, many conditions and metabolic disorders, neurotoxic effects on the brain, and even reproductive issues. So it's found in tons of food, and it's banned in at least food for children in over 50 countries. That is so much. I mean, I always look at stuff like this and I think, we're America, by golly. Why are we still putting this crap in our food? But the EU doesn't allow it in any food marketed to children. It's funny though, Elena, Pakistan is the only country on earth that has completely banned MSG. As far as,
wow,
I think that's right. I'm like 99% sure I'm accurate on that. But good for Pakistan.
Seriously.
Right. But what's worse is that our labeling laws in America are so loosey-goosey that we've allowed companies to put MSG in foods, which MSG is a known trigger for migraines. And It's just, you're usually not going to look at a food label and see monosodium glutamate, right? But you may see natural flavoring or any other number of misnomers, so for that, I'm really hopeful that we're going to change our labeling laws, because
Mhm.
MSG really works on the brain, and it's actually correlated with higher incidences of Alzheimer's disease, brain tumors, behavioral disorders like ADHD, schizophrenia, Tourette's, Huntington's, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, and epilepsy. And people talk about different kind of not neuropathies, but like burning in the neck or, in the arms, flushing, dizziness, fainting, feeling pressure in the face. There are so many things that this horrible, horrible chemical can do to the body. And I thought, oh, everybody knows about MSG, but I've recently had some young clients, like in their early 20s, and they're semi-aware of what's going on. Like, they know enough to know, I don't think MSG is good. I think it's a chemical. But their friends are like, here, put MSG on your food. It'll taste better.
That's just unbelievable. And
I
really,
know.
listeners,
Yeah.
this is just MSG, right? We haven't even gotten to everything else yet. This is only MSG that we're talking about. And you just heard all the health concerns that Sharon listed off.
Yeah.
MSG is bad news.
MSG is really bad. And I've had so many people through the years say, oh yeah, this potato chip has MSG in it, and this one and this one. And it doesn't say it has MSG, but it will say natural flavorings. And so, as our call to action for listeners and viewers out there, if you're reading labels, if you see natural flavorings, especially, I'm going to really call that one out. You should put it back, because that could be anything. It could be turmeric. It could be vanilla bean. It could just as well be MSG. And MSG is not going to add to your health. It is just going to create a fire, if you will.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm really hopeful RFK is going to at least like jump on that train. I know he's going to make our food safer,
Yes.
but there you go. So there's my short and sweet spiel on MSG.
Because that's such a big one. But then other ones, like, how about artificial sweeteners? Those are in a lot of junk food, but people just add it to their food as well.
And it's in toothpaste.
Oh, right.
But tell us why. Why, if I am a sugar addict, Elena, and I can have aspartame or sucralose or saccharin and not cause a problem for myself, why not? Why not do it?
Right. It just seems so convenient because it's low calorie, it's not sugar, but it's actually chemicals, and it will impact the way your body releases insulin.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too, because they've done studies, like Diet Coke was so big in the early 80s. I mean, I'm older than you, so I remember these things. But the whole thing was, if you're on a diet and you drink a Coke, you've got all this sugar, you have all these calories. But if you drink a Diet Coke, abracadabra, all those calories and sugar disappear. And then you're going to be safer, because you basically have an artificial sweetener that's not going to mess up your diabetes. It's going to help you lose weight. It's 0 calories. So drinking Diet Coke or diet soda of any kind, I don't want to just pick on Coca-Cola. You're basically drinking water. Well, we know that's not true. And there are several studies, so I don't want to misrepresent here, but there are studies that show that actually it does increase insulin resistance in type 2 diabetics. Then there are other studies that show, no, it doesn't, which for me, in my very doubting Thomas kind of mindset, I'm like, who paid for which study?
Exactly.
Who's funding these studies? But What I will tell you from my clinical experience over 20 years, I have helped people get off of heroin, ecstasy, smoking, marijuana. I mean, coffee, caffeine, you name it, nicotine, whatever. I can do any of those 10 times easier than I can get somebody off aspartame, namely Diet Coke.
The addiction is strong.
I think it's very strong. And I always heard my husband used to chew tobacco, and he had read somewhere and he used to always tell me, well, they say it's harder than quitting heroin. I was like, yep, but divorce is harder.
But
God
people
bless him. He quit.
Right, but we just don't look at diet sugars and artificial sweeteners as the same thing. And I mean, it isn't, because it could be harder to quit, but it's just as bad for you.
It is just as bad or worse, because remember that our liver is our main filter. It is also a digestive organ. So for all of these synthetic substances and chemicals that we bring into our body, our liver has to create a pathway by which to excrete those substances or the metabolites of those substances. And so when you're taking in things that are not natural, are not natural to the human body, you're really putting a load on your liver. It's a burden for your liver to have to go, oh, now what do I do with this? And that's why, like aspartame specifically is known as an excitotoxin, and it does create a lot of neurological inflammation. And I think it is highly addictive. And that's why we have such a hard time getting people off of it. Plus, there's just this almost religion of low calorie that people fall into. And aspartame, sucralose, saccharin, they are not going to burden you with calories. They are going to burden you with a toxic chemical that your body has a very hard time of excreting and has unknown levels of damage. And I think, going to your expertise, like genetics, depending on your genotype, you may not detox that well or ever.
Right. You might have more excitatory genes than the person next to you.
Yeah.
Another one, though, another sweetener, high fructose corn syrup.
Ooh.
Let's talk about that, because first of all, it comes from GMO corn that is treated with literally every chemical. But the thing about high fructose corn syrup is it bypasses the normal way that your body would metabolize sugar, where you eat something sweet and your brain gets a signal and it's satisfied and says, okay, we had something sweet, we're good. No, instead, it goes straight to the liver, where it's then stored as fat. Your brain doesn't register that, yes, we just had something sweet. Instead, it drives you to keep overeating and overconsuming. This is horrible for a lot of things, but especially obesity. And we have such an obesity
epidemic.
Yes, seriously, in this country. Yeah. So you want to watch what you're eating. Like, sugar is not good for you. Hear us there. Sugar is not good for you, but sugar is actually a natural substance. Your body knows how to process it, and it's not going to be adding toxins and poison to your body. So the thing about corn syrup, I say, is it's horrible for us, but it's great for those corn farmers who get those government subsidies and they just want to make their money.
You're going to take us down a wormhole.
I know. We'll stop it there.
But you're right. And I think if you look at natural sugars like fructose, glucose, sucrose, fructose is fruit sugar. Okay, well, high fructose corn syrup is not just plain old sugar from fruit. It is, I can't even remember, exponentially like 100 times sweeter than sugar or something. I can't remember. But I think, to your point about obesity and the link between consumption of high fructose corn syrup, the number of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease diagnoses in the U.S. is astounding. Used to, you didn't see fatty liver unless somebody was an alcoholic. And now non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is so rife in our society. But I think that a lot of it is because of our diet, and high fructose corn syrup is one of the main reasons, because like you said, sugar's one thing. We eat sugar and our body goes, that was good, I'm done. High fructose corn syrup doesn't have that messaging system with our brain. And
Mm-hmm.
so we continue to eat, and it makes us want more. And then we end up in this terrible loop of overeating, of over consuming sugar. And sugar does not have fat in it. And I think, back to the whole, what was the Netflix documentary, like Take Your Pills or something like that? I can't remember, but
I don't
about
remember.
talking about Ansel Keys and how he was really in with big food and saying sugar is okay. It's all these other like saturated fat was bad. Sugar does not have fat. But what we have to realize is that sugar turns into fat. Just like you said, it gets stored in the liver as fat. Please, listeners and viewers, if you hear nothing else today, it's really important that you understand that just eating sugar because it has no fat does not work. Look at the 1980s. Look at Snackwell's cookies and all of these low fat snacks and desserts and foods that were made, but they had a lot of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
It all got stored as fat in your liver.
Yep. And, just real quick on natural sugars, there are some health benefits from truly natural sugars, such as maple syrup, which is full of minerals, honey, it's antihistamine, natural antibiotic, or fruits that have all kinds of antioxidants and vitamins and minerals. But, with fruit, you're getting fiber that helps you digest it. And your body registers and uses maple syrup and honey in a very healthy way because it doesn't take much to get that satisfaction from it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the fiber makes all the difference. And for
fruit.
those macro nuts out there, if you're one of those crazy people who counts your grams of protein and fat and carbs, I'm just kidding. I don't think you're crazy. I think you're incredibly informed, but you've got to look at net carbs, right? And so net carbs is carbohydrates minus fiber. And what you should know for the rest of you out there who have no idea what a macro is that when you eat a piece of fruit, when you eat an apple with the peel, because it's organic, you are reducing the impact of the sugar in that apple because there's fiber. And fiber is what sweeps our gastrointestinal system out. It's what lowers our overall blood sugar. It's what keeps us not inflamed, from many standpoints, even cardiovascular, gastrointestinal, all of it. And so, you're right. Like eating fruit, that's great. Don't hear fruit is bad because it has sugar. Same thing with maple syrup and honey. I love that you pointed those out.
Yeah.
Just don't drink fruit juice, especially if it's sweetened with high fructose corn syrup.
Oh, well then here's another one, trans fats. There's been a movement, I'd say in the last, I don't know, 5, probably more years. I don't know. Trans fats are beginning to disappear a little bit, but you still do find things. And trans fats are going to be like hydrogenated oils. It's typically seed oils that are taken at room temperature and have hydrogen added to them to make them solid at room temperature. And therefore,
thank you for making that understandable.
Yes. And thus more shelf stable, right?
Right.
It's taking an oil that was never meant to be shelf stable. And we are now consuming it and consuming way too much of it. And it raises your LDL, the bad cholesterol, and it lowers the HDL, your good cholesterol. So, it has a huge impact and can have really bad implications for heart disease and cancer.
Yeah. And I think that it's important to know, like seed oils, when for years and years, and I think even since because gosh, you're a babe, and you're beautiful and you're young, but in as much as long as I have been in this field, we have told people, okay, hey, whole food diets are the best. And if you're going to eat nuts, you should buy them organic and raw, and then you should soak them. And then you should toast just 1 day's worth so that it has more flavor. It's more appealing. Okay. But the reason we always said only do 1 day's worth is because seed oils, nut and seed oils, go rancid so fast. So what are we to do with a whole bottle of grapeseed oil, canola oil, things like that. So
Mm.
can you just name for our listeners and viewers, like, what are some of the seed oils that we should be aware of
Well,
besides super, what is it? Hydrogenated vegetable fat, whatever the restaurant one is.
yeah. Well, how about I just name off the hateful eight: canola, soybean, sunflower, safflower, corn, cottonseed, grapeseed oil, and rice bran. Like those 8 oils should never be consumed the way they are in American food products.
Yeah.
And, it's even in organic foods. You really got to read your label.
They're in nutritional supplements.
Yeah. Constantly. It's like, don't we know by now, at least in the health world, that these are bad?
Yeah.
And, we do need omega 6s, which seeds are high in, but nobody needs to eat as many as we're getting in seed oils. And every time you eat out, unless you're using that handy little app, if y'all don't know about it, Seed Oil Scout, it's amazing. It lets you know where you can dine safely from seed oils. And then they've got their shameful dining experiences where good luck, you aren't getting anything healthy there. But there are ways to navigate it and know. But I think we just kind of can forget about that one because it's in everything. You think, oh, this is organic, I'm fine. Or I got this at the health food store, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
Read that label.
Yeah.
Read that label. Seed oils are everywhere.
Yeah.
And
I feel like Seed Oil Scout owes us a commission. We have turned so many people on that app.
We don't get paid for this, y'all. We're just sharing the good news.
Nothing.
Okay, I hope that, RFK can do something in a good direction with this too.
Yeah, RFK owes us something too.
Yes.
We've promoted him all the way. Okay, let's keep moving. So, food dyes.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah. So, food dyes, originally, I mean, why do we even use food dyes? It's funny because, like, I look at that, like pharmaceutical vitamin D3. I'm like, why is it blue? It's not blue. Why are we putting food coloring in vaccines, in prescription medications? I'm sorry. Most of those things taste like what anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Why does it matter what color they are? So think about that while we talk about, okay, food. Yes, the appearance of food does make a difference with our appetite. And originally, to enhance the appearance of food, we would use food dye like beetroot. I mean, if anybody's ever peeled a beet, you know what beets can do to dyeing things. But beetroots, turmeric, saffron, paprika, spinach, spirulina, which gives a beautiful blue hue to things, even carrot juice. And all of these things, they're very natural. There's nothing toxic about them. That's what food dye was. And it was just to intensify, the color, the appearance of a food, or make it appear more vibrant. But, here in all our wisdom and belief that synthetic anything is better than whatever Mother Nature threw at us, we came up with all the lovelies, such as red dye 3, which thank God that one's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow dyes like 5 and 6, blue dye 1 and 2, and then there's some green dyes, maybe 3. But what makes all of these nasty little boogers extra special is that they are known to cause many adverse health conditions. The main ones that we have seen clinically, or I'll speak for myself, behavioral issues, especially in children. And I can speak from an experience. My daughter, who is now 29, I wish I had had a brain cell when I was young and a young mother, because I did have my babies young. So I will say that. And we didn't have the internet, or I would have been Googling her all day long. But if she got red food coloring, holy Toledo, like Katie bar the door, it was insane the antics this child would embark on. She had this little grocery cart, the little toys, and she would run from one end of the house. We had a long house, and she would run from one end to the other, pushing this little metal, and it was metal because that's how old we are, grocery cart into the wall at full speed. And she would only do that if she'd had red candy. Because also being mom of the year, I gave my kids red candy.
It's before you knew better.
It was before I knew anything. So, but we've seen kids in here like with hugely uncontrollable anger issues, focus issues, even adults who go, I think I have a red issue, but anger, ADHD, even autism spectrum disorders are known to be impacted by exposure to food dyes. So that is remarkable. There's even, now I learned this in my class. I didn't look it up to verify it. So take it as educational entertainment. They're like green food coloring. And I know my granddaughter, holy cow, that kid, if she gets green food coloring, she literally, like, her eyes vibrate. And she told my daughter one day, I can't control myself. And it was after being at a birthday party with a green cupcake. It was so sad. Because even if that cupcake is gluten-free, if it has green food coloring in it, you're screwed. But I think it's called Shrek colon.
Yes.
And it came about after the movie Shrek and of course, any great animated movie is going to then have, all these products associated with it. And birthday cakes were very green, in celebrating a Shrek birthday. And that all that green food coloring would actually stain the tissue of the colon.
That's horrific.
And I just think we need to understand that probably comes at a price.
Yeah.
There's probably something that's going to be residual from that.
Right. And the red dye 3 got banned. The rest hopefully are soon to follow. But
Hallelujah.
The red dye, right. It's a petroleum derived food coloring. Petroleum. And it's been banned in cosmetics for decades, but only just now banned from foods. And it's like, I honestly don't know why it's taken so long, because people used to be accustomed to foods just looking like they naturally do. But we've been conditioned to expect foods to have more vibrant color, enhanced flavors, all these things that the marketing industry for the food industry has done to us. Like we have these unrealistic expectations versus remembering that, hey, once the food has been canned or preserved or dried, anything that isn't fresh, it's going to lose some of that vibrance. And that's okay. I'd prefer that. I would prefer the dull look to a food coloring, bright red in my food, candy, drink, whatever.
Minor rabbit trail. I think, that's a really good point. Because we do just have this expectation, and I think it's an American thing. We're so displaced from where our food comes from. And though, you garden and you raise chickens and you've even blessed me with some of your eggs, and we raise beef and we raise a lot of our own food on our ranch. I think when you have that connection to the source of your food, there is this expectation and understanding. It may not look like what you see in pictures in magazines or on fast food advertisements or on the TV. But when you live in an especially urban environment, when you don't ever pick your own carrot out of the earth and eat it, or pick an apple out of a tree and eat it, or you've never seen animal production from birth to harvest, it can be very misleading. And they've even done these studies where they ask kids, do you want cow's milk or you want grocery store milk? And they're like, oh, I just get my milk from the grocery store. Do you want dead cow or do you want hamburger? And I'm like, oh, I just want hamburger. It comes from the grocery store. Like the grocery store is this magical factory that creates all these foods, and they don't understand, well, your hamburger is a dead cow. Not to creep people out, right? Like we raise beef and I mean, I'm going to say, I think I've said it before. My husband sheds tear when we when we harvest ours because we love them so much. And it's this continual effort to honor and respect, why we have our animals and what we're getting from them. And so we
Mhm.
love them,
Yeah.
whether they're pets or food, we
Yeah.
love them. But I think that then there's this expectation when there's this separation from the source of our food that, oh, yeah, red velvet cake, there's nothing to be suspect of there. What could go wrong?
Have you ever,
Um,
like, I'm sure you have, Sharon, you bake, I bake. Any listeners or viewers, have you actually made a red velvet cake from scratch and ever looked at how much food coloring you put in that? I'm sorry, I'm going back
it's
to that.
alarming.
It is so insane. I've used natural food coloring to do it before, and I used a ton and it didn't turn red. It's like, you know what? I'm good with this. I don't want it red.
Yeah. We have even, so here's your little how-to tip of the day. I love to use like the natural things that we talked about, like purple cabbage, beetroot
Yep.
juice. We pickle our beets, and so we can just use, that because it's already got vinegar in it. But turmeric, saffron's a little pricey to be dyeing stuff with, but hey, if you're made of money, go you. Um, and then carrot juice, but all of these things can be used. That's what we dye our Easter eggs with. And they're more subtle, but they're so beautiful in their own right,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think just adjust your expectations and maybe plug into sources of information that are more grounded in reality and in nature versus
Artificial.
yeah, versus
Yeah.
artificial. So
Yeah.
there's so
Well,
much to be had out there. And
well,
there's a
there's
lot of
lots to say about food colors. Let's move on because
yes,
we could
let's
probably do
move
a
on.
whole podcast just on that.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
yes, but go RFK.
yes.
Woo.
So,
Yeah, okay.
sodium nitrite. Let's talk about that one because that is used on all kinds of bacon and cured meats. It's so prevalent in meats.
Yeah,
It could be other
so
things too, but
yeah, absolutely. So how many people have gone to the deli counter or they go to the store and they're like nitrite free, nitrate free. Yay, that must be good, but how is it good? Okay. Well, so let's talk about what it is and why maybe we want to avoid it. Nitrates are used to cure or age or preserve meats mainly, and they are useful, right? Especially if you're doing like sausages and bacon and anything that is cured. Ham is another one. Pork seems to be the theme of the day there, but it is very vital in curing meats. It gives them like as far as maintaining like a pink color, keeping a flavor preservative. That's where nitrates come in handy, but it's also used to kind of slow down the oxidation or the aging process of the fats and the protein in meat products. And I mean, it's not because some diabolical evil man said, ha ha ha, let's put nitrites in this and make everybody sick, because it does suppress the growth of things like Clostridium botulinum. And so that's botulism. Botulism will kill you if you get it. I think botulism may be the one where they say don't buy dented canned foods if the dent is at the seam at the top, because you can get botulinum from it. I don't know. I can't remember. It's been a long time since food safety, but nitrites help to suppress all of that. And synthetic nitrites are frequently used just for curing. So for bacon and whatever, because it's cheap and it's easier to do. You can be more hands off, like apply the treatment and just go away. But the problem is sodium nitrites for many people cause headaches. It causes nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. It can lower your blood pressure dangerously so, and it can increase your heart rate. People have reported breathing difficulties. even death. So,
Mm.
in food, studies between overconsumption of sodium nitrites and nitrates have been linked to cancer and heart disease, neurological diseases, and high levels of nitrates in your blood system can actually lower your red blood cells' ability to carry oxygen to your cells. No biggie. Who needs oxygen, right? So,
Yeah.
nitrite. So where you see nitrite free, nitrate free, that is a better option. But then also, because we usually see this in meats, I always tell people, if you're buying roast beef or you're buying turkey or pastrami, I don't even know what pastrami, I think it's pork. I don't know what it comes from, but does it look like it would off the hoof? Off the hoof means when they cut it off the animal. Well, if you don't know what dead animals look like, I guess you wouldn't know. But bacon, uncured bacon, that's the way to go, right?
That's just sliced pork belly, isn't it?
It is. It's pork belly. And for those of you who have ability to find pork belly, I would encourage you, try it. It's delicious. Then turkey breast is one that I see a lot, but I always tell people, well, look at the turkey breast. Is it round and loaf shaped, or does it look like a turkey's breast? Does it look like the breast of the turkey at Thanksgiving? Because if it doesn't, it's been processed. And so the less processed we have our food when we eat it, the healthier we will end up generally. And that's a
Yeah.
broad overview. But yeah, using nitrite and nitrate free is definitely an important aspect. I just think it's important that we understand why. And it's because there are many ways to cure. The oldest of ancient ways is salt. Salt was used to cure everything. And despite what people tell you, salt is not the enemy. American table salt is not good. But if you use sea salt or Redmond's real salt or Celtic sea salt, pink Himalayan sea salt, there's several. Those are all really good, and they have lots more mineral in them than just sodium and chloride. But if you're buying processed food, please buy nitrite free. How's that?
At the very least.
Yes.
But even with regular meat, if it's not the processed preserved ones, you've got to be so careful because there's growth hormones in every conventional meat and dairy product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Meat. So in meat, in beef, in the beef industry, especially, or any meat that you're raising, I just happen to know beef a little better since I married a cowboy. It's used the cattle will grow faster and muscle up faster. It's also used in dairy. It's that recombinant bovine
growth hormone.
Hormone, yeah. What's the name for it?
RBGH
or the acronym?
RBGH or RBST.
Yeah. So when you see RBST free, that's the gallon that's the jug you're going to grab, right? Because there's no growth hormone. Because really and truly, if you've never been to a commercial dairy, they're very proud of themselves. And many times they do offer tours. And I would encourage people to go take a tour so you can be appropriately appalled and disgusted. And then you should go tour a raw milk or a more organic facility, because what they do to cows is disgusting. No cow is really made to make, what is it, like 8 gallons of milk a day.
It's disgusting.
And, not to be gross or anything, but we see women lactating. So a new mom and her milk comes in her breasts and she's complaining, oh, my breasts are so engorged. It means there's a lot of milk in there, right? And your breast size may increase drastically. And that's how women end up with stretch marks on their breasts, is from this fast expansion of tissue. But that goes away, right? It's a
Mhm.
natural process of the body. But when we force animals to stay in that state, it's not good. It's inhumane.
It really is. And it's creating stress hormones too.
And it's a great disrespect for creation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. And
So yeah, and it was developed by Monsanto. And since I shall not say it because I don't want to be sued, I don't have high regard for Monsanto.
No, nope, me neither. RFK, I don't know how many of our listeners know this, but RFK has been in the business of keeping people safe and healthy for a while, and he won a
Suing
lawsuit.
people. he's a
But-
good litigator.
Yeah, because he won a lawsuit against Monsanto, who's owned by Bayer. So Bayer, the lawsuit was $12 billion, and he won that for the plaintiffs. And then, as the story goes, the shareholders were so angry about this lawsuit that they sued Bayer another $12 billion. And when you think about $24 billion that they could just shell out, don't you think probably by now they could have funded some research and development for safer products?
Yeah.
I always say,
the
money.
Monsanto, I guess, is no more, right? It was
Yeah.
it was acquired by Bayer. But when it was Monsanto, there's a really good documentary out there if you're a documentary aficionado, and I think it's called King Corn or Corn King. It was on Netflix, I believe, for a while, and I know it's still out there somewhere. But Monsanto was going around because you have all of these plants, like corn is one, like, back to high fructose corn syrup, and you look at all the ethanol production, that's all from GMO corn. Well, if you know anything about agriculture, you know that we have to have pollination for a lot of plants to thrive. And Monsanto was going around, and they would have this farmer with his however many sections of Monsanto Roundup Ready corn, and then there was an organic corn farm across the highway, right? Well, pollinators such as butterflies and bees and birds would start over here. Well, they didn't get the memo that this is non-Monsanto corn, and so maybe you shouldn't go over there. And they would go over there, and then Monsanto would test these organic fields, and they would find trace evidence of GMO corn, like Roundup Ready corn, because of cross-pollination. And they were throwing these small farmers out of business. Like, if you're a small farmer and you're not just existing on subsidies, that's tough. But most farmers are existing on subsidies, which is a whole other conversation, right? But the evil that existed within that corporation to try to do away with people who were respecting the earth and trying to provide a different product that would never compete on a global scale with Roundup Ready corn or GMO corn. But they were just so headstrong and dead set on destroying these mom and pop operations or these multi-generational farms. It was just disgusting. And it just, I just have no respect for companies that feel like they have to take over the world and destroy everything that's good in their path.
Yeah. Well, that leads me to what I like to call a dishonorable mention that I wanted to bring up.
You go, girl.
Glyphosate. It's not necessarily a food additive per se, but it's in everything now. Glyphosate is what most people know as Roundup. And you can only use this on genetically modified foods because anything else would die.
Mm-hmm.
And how this started was actually, it was a cleaner for industrial boilers and pipes, essentially a chelator. It would clear everything out of those pipes. And I think someone spilt it on the ground one day or something. They realized, hey,
everything died.
Yes, it kills everything. So let's sell this as a weed killer. And it became this popular weed killer. And then they thought, okay, well, what if we genetically modify our crops.
Which
So we
is not
can
too far from pharmaceutical research.
exactly.
Here's an unpatented molecule. What will it kill?
Yeah. So they did this with our food. And then they
Mhm.
could spray the glyphosate all over it and it's soaked in it. It would speed up the harvest time. They could get more crops in. And nowadays it's in and on just about every grain based product in America. Like 80 to 90% of crops are GMO. And a GMO crop has 80 to 95% decrease in nutrients. So our food is just nutrient dead. Even these things that have all these good health benefits, if you're eating organic, non glyphosate, but they say that trace amounts of glyphosate can even be found on organic food due
Mhm.
to the saturation in water and soil. You know, it's designed to destroy life, and it does that in our guts. How do you think, or why would anyone think your gut microbiome would survive something that could kill an entire wheat field except this one genetically modified grain? We're not
And
genetically
and
modified
is
yet.
that really something you wanna eat?
Right, right. So, we have such a epidemic as well of leaky gut, like gut issues, where people don't have immune systems anymore. They've become autoimmune. We've got a mental health crisis. We've got people with so many neurological disorders, fertility disorders, once again, obesity. People are struggling because they're starved for nutrients. So
Yeah.
glyphosate, bad news. And that's not on most packaging. There are some companies that are
Mhm.
now starting to proudly say glyphosate free. And let me tell you, I buy those products every time. I want to support them. We've got
Yeah.
to let people know what we want more of by supporting the companies that are going that extra mile.
Absolutely. I was in Switzerland a few years ago and my host was driving us around and we were going around these fields that were biologique and or organic and I was saying, so you don't have glyphosate here? And he's like, no, it's coming. And then we were in France, I think the next year, cycling around in the south of France. And I woke up one morning, we had these, this beautiful chateau, threw open the doors and I was like, what is that smell? And my husband came down. He's like, oh my gosh, shut the door. That's pesticides, fertilizer that they're spraying. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he went out and he's like, yeah, I think they're using Roundup here. I mean, it was just
That's
crazy
so
to think
sad.
about that, that's what we've done to the rest of the world. But I do want to not sound like a hopeless person. And I think, especially as it goes to glyphosate, we do a toxin testing here. It's called total toxin test. And we offer that because glyphosate is one of the many toxins that gets measured. And something that's really important to note is that, glyphosate is a glycine molecule. And glycine is an amino acid that really is everywhere in our body. There's a receptor site everywhere in our body, and it does play a role like with soft tissue, connective tissue. And so with glyphosate, what happens is you have these glycine keyholes, right? So only glycine will fit in there. But glyphosate happens to have that same shape. And so, you eat a salad from wherever and it's not organic and you've got all this glyphosate in your system. Well, that glyphosate is going to go fill up all of those keyholes. Those little keys of glyphosate are going to go put in all these receptor sites, and you're not going to get the beneficial effect that glycine would give, which is to continue to have plenty and healthy connective tissue and soft tissue. So the thinking is, and Dr. Klinghardt really promotes this, is if you know you're getting glyphosate, you should consume glycine as a supplement before you eat. Glycine, the amino acid, because then you have glycine going around and filling up those keyholes, right? Those little receptor sites. It's like, here's glycine, here's glycine, here's glycine. So then you eat that same nasty salad and glyphosate is in there, but there's nowhere for it to bind to. And so it passes on through. So for those of you not eating organic, you're like, oh man, I don't know what my glyphosate levels are. Okay, you can test. It's a bit spendy, but worth it if you're worried about this. Or you can take some glycine before every meal, and especially the meals that you're worried about. And that can actually reduce your glyphosate consumption over time. It's not a one and done, it's not like immediate, but you're helping your body over time. So that's really important to know. But I think too, just recognizing that toxic food chemicals actually have short-term effects and they have long-term effects, and they are behind a lot of issues that we are dealing with. So if these one-time things that happen, like maybe you're the crunchy mom of the year in your community, but oh my gosh, we're having a party at McDonald's, what am I gonna do? Well, don't lose your mind, first of all, right? But it's really the lifestyle that matters. We're resilient, we're made to be adaptive, and I just want to put that out there and reassure people, one screw up isn't going to ruin your health. That's not what this is about. And we want you to hear us when we say everybody screws up, whether they want to or not. But long-term consumption of food chemicals does lead to chronic health issues. And I think we're at crisis point in our country. And some of the most common conditions are, chronic illnesses, allergies and sensitivities, hormonal imbalances, obesity, leaky gut, Crohn's, celiac, you name it, right? But also increased cancer risk and especially, to glyphosate. It's a big one. But also heart health and obesity. And I think obesity is really the big one, because this is, yes, an overconsumption of calories and certain types of food chemicals, but it's still malnutrition because your body is probably starving for certain nutrients. And if you're working with a healthcare provider like us at K6 Wellness, and we do work virtually with everybody just to, plug ourselves, but there are tests that we can run to see what is your nutrient status. Are you lacking in vital elements that are needed to enjoy good health? Okay. So those are things. And then I think just being aware of what you're taking in. So sorry to hog the mic,
It's
Elena, you just,
important.
talk to us about it. Because I
Well,
love hearing you talk about packaging and labeling and all of that.
it's just learning to read labels and being
Yeah.
educated, so you can't be hoodwinked by all these hard words to pronounce because they're chemicals and preservatives. Most natural, like truly natural foods are easier to pronounce because you've heard of them. But there's just a lot of deceptive ways that labels can word things. You just want to be really wary of any food that's labeled quote unquote all natural, because that could mean so many different things. Talking about the natural flavors, you don't really know what that means. It's kind of what I like to call a greenwashing word, where they make you feel better because it's got the word natural, but it doesn't necessarily mean it includes something that's good for you. So you just want to, educate yourself and be aware of what these different foods are, because, most processed foods are going to have preservatives. So the easiest solution is just don't eat preserved foods. That's the middle of the grocery store.
Of course.
Aisles, it's like eat real fresh food. Because the thing is, in America, we've got pretty lax laws on what can and can't be in food. There's that whole generally recognized as safe practice that the big food industry uses. Now, most companies don't ask for permission when using questionable ingredients. They just use it and wait for the FDA to tell them they did a bad thing.
It's that whole thing, asking forgiveness is easier than asking permission.
Exactly. And hey, I'm hoping that food labeling has to become a lot more transparent with this new wave of health in this country.
Agreed. Go, Bobby.
Yeah. Because, compared to other countries that regulate what they use, we don't. There's over 10,000 food additives allowed in US foods. I mean, that is a lot. And
I know when I was producing skincare, the lab that I was using when we were, finishing like the shelf stabilization process, they're like, okay, well, if you want to export, this is the big long list of things you can't put in your product, but the US says it's okay. But if you want to be okay exporting, you got to leave all this out. And I'm like, why would I put that in?
Right. Just pretend we're exporting. We deserve that goodness too.
For sure.
Because, yeah, there's a lot of things that other countries won't allow. Just on the food topic, some of the most popular foods that are allowed in the US but are banned in other countries are things like Twinkies, which, come on, no
Should
one
be.
should be eating those.
They have
Or
like a 53-year shelf life, I think.
right. Or Skittles. I mean, they're basically flavored plastic. Um, and then Coffee Mate, Ritz crackers, maraschino cherries, which, I mean, no one should be eating those either. But then
There's a
get
better
this.
way to make an old fashioned.
Yes. But how about U.S. pork, farmed salmon, and U.S. milk are not allowed in Europe because they are so toxic. So
Wow.
bad. I mean, that's a lot. So we just want to be careful to know what hidden things are in our food so we can feed our families the best and feed ourselves the best. So read those labels, buy organic foods, and just shop the outskirts of the grocery store. There's hardly anything you should need in the middle, maybe some spices, not much, but look for healthy alternatives. There's a lot of options now, and even places like Costco make it healthy and affordable for organic options. But just opt for whole foods, which is not the store, just like a whole foods diet where you're eating meats and fruits and veggies, nuts and seeds, and just having those home cooked meals versus eating out and eating processed foods. It's just, always going to be cheaper and much healthier because you know everything that goes into your food. And that's where education plays a very important role. You've got to educate yourself, educate your family, educate your community. Take up community initiatives so your voice can be heard. And your voice is heard really loudly when you spend your money on the things that are healthy. People know, once again, you want more of that. So
money talks.
It really does. Just know what's in your food and educate your family. Don't forget about great apps that you can use, like Yucca, ewg.org. It's a website. Bobby
Seed
approved.
Oil Scout.
Yep, Seed Oil Scout again. Just there's things that make it easy. And I know we've talked about these before, but every time we might have new viewers and listeners, I like to mention that because it's a great way to get the whole family in on it. It can be fun. It can be fun going to the grocery store and keeping your kids occupied while you're shopping because they're scanning all the barcodes and seeing how your food scores. It's great. But, also understanding what are your real triggers. There's a food additives markers test that you can do through Vibrant America, a lab that we order through, where you can see which food additives create an IgG or an IgA response. And we're going to put a link in our show notes where you could go and order that if you want, because hey, information is power. And while we know all these things are bad for us, find out what your real triggers are, because you could be doing all the good things, but then you've got these exceptions. And are these exceptions holding you back from the progress you could really make? I really hope, once again, that we're moving towards a cleaner, more natural, more transparent system for our food in America.
Yeah, we still have a really long way to go, but conversations are becoming more and more common about what real health looks like and how do we get there, right? I love it when clients come in all the time, and they ask about, this food or that food, and they saw this on TikTok or they saw this on Instagram and it's some health reel, right? Or maybe an influencer, maybe a researcher, maybe a doctor or whatever, some social media platform. And a lot of it is actually really good practices and lifestyles to strive for. And I love that is becoming a popular thing. We've gone beyond big pecs and makeup, right? And we've gotten on to clean eating and living a healthy lifestyle. And, we work with people all over the world. So just want to encourage you, like, if you want to do this food chemical panel, we're happy to go through that with you and help you troubleshoot your health issues and come up with a long-term plan. And that can be done with anybody, anywhere. So all you have to do is contact us through our information in the show notes or go to k6wellness.com. But just know your health journey is just that. It's a journey and every step matters. And we're so glad that you spent this time with us today. And we hope that it really inspired you to take some action towards better health. If you're watching this on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also follow us on Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, and who knows where else for more wellness tips. But if you're looking for a more personalized approach to your health, visit k6wellness.com and learn more. You can book a consultation, do a free 15-minute discovery call with Tracy, our new client specialist. And we just want you to know that your health is worth fighting for. We believe it. We want you to believe it. And every small step matters. So until next time, take care and stay well.